Hey everyone, this is Jen. You're watching BPD Woman. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about handling and diffusing super stressful situations that could sometimes even be life-threatening. So I'm going to talk to you about those today, and you can apply these techniques to both small, medium, and large problems. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, subscribe. On this channel, I offer you positive solution-based approaches to recovery from BPD, CPTSD, and tips and tricks that you will find useful if you have emotional dysregulation or consider yourself a highly sensitive person. I myself was diagnosed over 20 years ago with BPD, and I have done a plethora of treatments, including about a half dozen DBT courses. I do book work, workbooks, I look at research, I read articles, you get it. I'm pretty committed. While I am not a therapist, I can answer one very important question that they cannot, which is, what's it like to have BPD? And in doing so and having that answer, I can actually show you how to apply the skills that you learn in therapy, in DBT, and how to actually use them in real world settings. And that's what we're going to do today. So let's go. Oftentimes, when you have BPD, you find yourself acting on impulses, you find yourself reacting rather than responding, and I've done a few videos on emotional reactivity, so I'll put some links up if you feel like checking those out. And the problem with this emotional reactivity or saying things right in the heat of the moment is that they can cause problems, right? And sometimes they can even cause dangerous problems. So I'm going to share with you a bit of a issue that I've had with somebody living in my building, and it's been going on for about 2 years. And I'm going to tell you how the other day I think I handled the situation super effectively while remaining calm, not yelling, not swearing, and it even included a handshake at the end. And this is like someone who's been like my enemy for the last 2 years. So obviously, if you're ever in danger, you should protect yourself however you see fit, whether that's involving the police or whether that's making sure you're at least carrying some kind of weapon on you, like mace or a stun gun, of which I carry both. And that's just also kind of the area that I live in. But you want to make sure that you're always protecting yourself. And this is where vigilance comes in, right? You know, those of us with BPD, we have hypervigilance, which means we're always on high alert, thinking that something bad is going to happen to us. And of course, we think that because bad things have happened to us for the first good 2 decades of our life. So we're kind of programmed that way, much like a soldier in battle. They're primed for battle. So 2 years ago, I had just started living at the place where I'm living now, and I got in an elevator, and a rather intimidating guy got in the elevator with me, and he looked like this, like angry, right? And it's a very small elevator, and so I pushed my button for the 5th floor, and he said, "Oh, you're not gonna push my button? Well, that's just the difference between you and me. I would have pushed your button." And I'm like, okay, I don't know this person. I don't know why he's a 5-year-old girl, like throwing a tantrum about a fucking button. But it became very uncomfortable, and I felt immediately in danger. Like, who would say that? Especially, you know, you're in this enclosed space and you can't get out, right? So I said nothing. I got off. I mentioned something to property management about it, and they mentioned, yeah, that guy's kind of hot and cold. And at that time, I said, well, is this somebody that I'm going to have to worry about? A week later, I saw the guy again. I held the elevator for him. We seemed to make up. Things seemed to be fine. A week after that, or maybe a month after that, I was talking to a mutual friend who I thought was a friend at the dog park, and he walked by, and I saw him slip her something. He, like, gave her this, like, it was at night and her kid was there, and he's like, "Oh, here you go." And she's like, "Oh, thanks." And she like put it down her bra. Okay, like very discreet. She didn't say anything about it. It was very weird. So what do you think she put down her bra? What was she hiding? I think drugs. That's what I think. So here I thought this guy and I made up. And so this mutual girlfriend, she says, "Oh, this is so-and-so. Have you met so-and-so? Let's just call him Mr. X. Have you met Mr. X?" And I said, "Yes, I've met Mr. X." And I made a joke because I thought we were cool now. And I said, yeah, he got upset because I didn't push his button one day. That's how we know each other. Well, he starts flying off the handle. He's like, well, that's not the fucking truth. Why don't you really tell her what happened, you fucking bitch? And I'm like, whoa. And I don't take that kind of stuff sitting down. So, and obviously my blood's racing, and I'm in this dog park and he's on the other side of the fence. And so he's walking toward, he's like, you better shut your mouth. You better stop talking. And the friend, she's like looking kind of scared, and her kid's there, like a young child. And she's like, I think you should just stop talking to Mr. X right now. And like, she didn't have my side. And that was like really, that left a really bad taste in my mouth. Like, he's sitting here calling me these names, and she's like, well, I've never seen him act like that. Well, you just did. You just saw him. So at that point, I kind of like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm not dealing with her anymore. I'm not dealing with him anymore. So I mentioned something to property management. Fast forward, one day I see him in there and he's talking to property management, and he is like standing over these two women in the leasing office, just yelling them down, shouting them down. I got afraid. In fact, I texted a friend. I was like, I think I may have to call the police. So there's a police officer that lives in the building. I alerted him to this situation. Again, this is 2 years ago. I alerted him to this situation. He said, do you want me to talk to the guy? And I said, no, I think that that's going to aggravate the situation even further. There's clearly something wrong with this guy. He's like, like his license plate said disabled veteran. So there could be like some kind of traumatic brain issue going on, which could lead to, violence or CTE or something like that. So I'm just pulling up some notes here. So fast forward, 2 years goes by, and management had said something to him so that they were basically like, look, you don't take the same elevator as her. You don't talk to her. And for 2 years, it's been really great. Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, someone smashed in my windshield, okay? And my dash cam, unfortunately, didn't pick everything up, but somebody smashed in my windshield. And there was only one person that I could think of that I had a beef with. And so I'm friends with the police officer in the building, and I'm talking to him about it. I said, I don't know if it was him. It doesn't sound like it could be him. We really haven't any interactions over the last 2 years, but I can feel the guy glaring at me. When you're shooting like dirty looks or something like that, like somebody can feel that. So then a couple days later, my windshield's still broken, and it's about, it's Sunday morning, and I'm driving down the street, and he was there with his dog and his girlfriend. And, I'm pulling out, and this is what I see in my rearview mirror. Okay. So I was like, okay, well, this makes sense now. I thought things were fine. There hadn't been any issues, but now I have two things that have happened to me in less than 5 days. My windshield's been broken, and he's standing flipping me off down the street. And, I got home and I talked to the cop again, and I was like, look, I think this was him, and I can't prove anything. And he's like, well, do you want me to talk to him? And again, I said, no, don't talk to him. I was like, because he's clearly unstable and something could really escalate, right? So let's just stop right here and talk about the things that I've done that have been effective, that have kind of kept these things under wraps. You hear about neighbor disputes all the time. You hear about people like coming to physical blows. You hear about people getting restraining orders. That's not a road I want to go down. But that's a road that easily could go down if both people start escalating situations and throwing barbs and getting nastier and nastier with each other. So, I chose to ignore him. I chose to be vigilant when I'm walking around, because what's my goal in this situation? My goal is to live here as stress-free and drama-free as possible. That's my goal. And to be safe, and to keep my animals safe and my property safe. That's my goal. So there is a skill in DBT, in the emotional regulation module, called effectiveness, and it's in the interpersonal effectiveness. It's called being effective. And it asks you to focus on being effective rather than what's right in a situation. So that means that the right thing may be to shout him down. The right thing may be to have him arrested or pursue a restraining order, right? Or an injunction. The right thing may be to keep reporting him every time something happens. But what I've learned is that those interventions don't work, right? Like, property management hasn't done anything. He continues to live here. They continue to renew his lease, right? He's not going to change. So either I have to move, right? Or I have to keep things settled so that I go about getting my needs met. And my needs, again, are to live in a pretty drama-free, stress-free, safe environment. So you want to focus on doing the effective thing rather than the reactive thing, right? Effective and not reactive. So you don't want to start shouting. You don't want to start escalating, right? Because I know that's what's going to escalate him, right? He wants a confrontation. He gets off on bullying people. What middle-aged 45-year-old man, 6-foot man, gets off on shouting down and calling names to someone who's a woman who is a good, 8 inches shorter than they are, right? Does that sound like a reasonable person? No. And so you can't reason with the unreasonable. Fast forward, I have told this cop, don't talk to him. And I'm walking into the building maybe 4, 5, 6 days ago. And he's standing there, and there's somebody that's like, it's a double door system. So I'm waiting for them to clear the double door so that I can go in the double door. So I'm just waiting there. I have a very neutral face. I'm just kind of looking around at the ground. And this guy goes, what the fuck you looking at? So this is Mr. X now standing there with his dog. And I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, oh, you think you can just start rumors and there's not going to be repercussions? Which is a threat. That's a threat, right? So, I've got all my, I'm breathing. I'm staying still because listen, here's what I learned on safari. Only prey runs, right? Only the frightened run. So I'm not going to run and show that I'm intimidated because then he wins. Then he knows that I feel vulnerable. So I stayed there. I knew that I had my things on me. And also in that moment, I thought maybe this is an opportunity to put this whole fucking thing to bed. So he goes, oh, well, the cop talked to me and he said that you told him that I was shouting you down. And I was like, well, I did go down the street and I saw this in my window. He's like, oh, I was just rapping. Okay. All right. There's no thinking about what's effective. There's no reason to keep debating this. That's what his story's going to be. Okay, sure. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Then I misunderstood that. Yes, you were rapping. Of course, I don't actually believe that. I'm just going after my goal, which is stay safe, live stress-free. So he's like, well, the cop talked to me. Now that was surprising because I had asked the cop in the building not to speak to Mr. X. So that actually made me upset. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, you called the cops? I was like, yes, I did. Can you stop? I asked him, I was like, can you stop so that I can explain? And he did. He stopped. And he's like, okay. And I was like, and this is the first conversation he and I are having in, count it, 2 years. So I said, I did call the cops the other week. Okay. And I said, somebody did break in my windshield. And that's what I reported. And I also told this police officer not to talk to you. He asked me, should I talk to him? And I said, no. And I was like, listen, this is too tense, Mr. X. This is too tense. You avoiding me and me avoiding you. I told him it didn't make sense that my windshield had been broken by you because we had pretty cordial. He's like, yeah, he's like, this is, I've been having all these issues. I had to get this dog for emotional support. My mom died. I've had these gastro issues. And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry, and now I'm petting his dog. And I was like, listen, could we just stop this? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, I love you, girl. And I was like, okay, well, he's again, right? So, and I was like, okay, well, let's shake on it, And again, I'm not thinking this guy's my friend. I'm not thinking I can trust this guy. I'm not thinking this guy will now be reasonable. I've learned that this guy is unstable, unpredictable, starts a conversation that starts with, Do you think you could just run your mouth and not have repercussions? And I'm literally caught off guard. That ends with, oh, I love you. It's fine. You know, let's just be cool. So I did talk to the police officer and I was like, look, the guy is nuts. Like, don't say anything to him. So this is an example of doing something that's effective that I don't necessarily want to do, but it's the quickest way to my goal, right? There's all different ways to a destination, and you can choose which route you want to go to. In this case, the route that I chose to was basically to appease him and tell him what he wanted to hear and put it to bed and stop with all the tension. Because that's a lot to carry around. Like when you live in a pretty small building and you are trying to actively, avoid somebody all of the time, that really takes a toll. Okay. And I think it takes a toll on him too. And he was disarmed very quickly. So what did I want to do? I wanted to punch him in his fucking face. All right. I wanted to take my stun gun out and fucking stun gun him and fucking punch him in his face because he's a piece of shit. He's a bully piece of shit drug dealer and he's crazy. Okay. He's unstable. And sometimes the way to make peace with the people that are really unpredictable is just to appease them. Yeah. Feed into their line of bullshit, What are my expectations? Now I thought we're going to be friends because I don't want to be friends with him because he's a piece of shit and he was really nasty to me, right? And he has said and done really nasty things. And he has proven, I see this guy yelling at people all the time. So do I think I'll never be yelled at again by this guy? I don't think so. I think there's a high likelihood this guy will yell at me again or pull some other stuff. So the point of this is that you can stay emotionally regulated. You can be effective even though it's not what you want to do. So it's the line in DBT is do what's effective and not what's right, right? Do what's effective and not what's right. Okay? There may be a set of rules or procedures that you don't want to follow because they don't make a lot of sense, but if the payoff is better for you to follow those directions, then do that. Be effective and stop focusing on what's right or what you think is right. Have I met my goal? Yeah, I actually felt really empowered after that conversation because I didn't run. I told him what was what. And it also kind of cleared this tension, right? Now, I want you to think of situations where you can be effective or things that are bothering you. Sometimes just going and talking to someone and not avoiding, avoiding. That's another expression in DBT. Avoiding can really help you get a greater sense of mastery about yourself. And what is the payoff here? Well, okay, I'm going to live in a bit of a safer situation, right? Okay. He thinks we're on good terms now. And also I haven't resorted to yelling or arguing. I didn't sap my energy, right? I didn't come upstairs and start worrying or being anxious about the next thing that's going to happen. Because if I had started yelling or throwing barbs or, threatening him or calling the cops, which I haven't ruled out. If I feel my life's in danger, I will respond accordingly. But I didn't do that, and so I didn't feel drained from that, right? I felt like I had energy to do my other things, and there's a bunch of things going on here. You're practicing emotional regulation, you're practicing effectiveness, you're practicing going after your goals. And it's a lot to juggle at once. I didn't do this right out of the gate, guys. My first round of DBT was over, almost probably 16, 17 years ago. So it's a lot of practice. And again, there's no quick fixes in recovery, is there? My name's Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below. And until I see you next time, please be effective. Bye-bye.